Last week, I had the opportunity to interview Sam Liu, the director of DC's upcoming animated film Batman the Doom That Came to Gotham. We talked about what it was like to make the film, why he found himself drawn to it, and more. A huge thank you to Warner Brothers UK for making this happen. Here's the full interview. Hi, Sam, how are you?
Good. How are you? I think it was the first time we talked, right?
I know, I was about to say, we tried to arrange an interview a long time ago, and this is the first time we're getting around to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how's it going?
It's going okay. I can't believe this are, I don't know, it's so short. It's so fast. Like I'm trying to condense, but I get wordy.
No, that's absolutely fine. So, have you had time to see the film yourself yet?
I've seen it way too many times.
Oh,
I had to, obviously, when we're going through editing and stuff like that,
oh, of course.
I guess maybe the more important question is like, can I see the picture clearly now? Because again, I feel like I'm so in the weeds with it. I've lost sense of whatever the scope of it is. So,
What is it that made you want to adapt this story in particular, and what was it about Mike Magnolia's and Richard Pace's take on the character and storytelling that drew you in?
oof, it's complicated because um, I think I wanted to do something a little different, and I think I've felt this way for quite a few years leading up to this point. And so I feel like I've been fortunate enough, even though I'm sure some fans don't think that, of doing sort of different takes on these characters, right? And so I was part of it is video game inspired. I was playing a video game that I loved that was a gothic horror thing, and just the theme of it, the how the story kind of goes, and even the clarity of it, which is kind of fuzzy, was really intriguing to me. And so that was kind of the impetus. And talking with some of the people about, is there a story that's kind of like that? Bruce, Tim, and I can't remember if Jim was in the initial conversation, but I ended up talking to Jim Creep a lot about it.
Yeah.
Pointing me towards Gotham not Gotham, I guess, the Jim that came to Gotham.
Yeah.
And so when I read it, it felt obviously like a very Mignola story. Like, it really close in vein with like the Hellboy stories, obviously, right? And so the pairing of kind of like these the characters or the monsters that are in it with Batman characters fit so seamlessly to me, or made so much sense in a fan kind of way,
Yeah.
that I was like, oh, this is really interesting, you know. And the core thing about it that sold me on it, right, was again, it felt very much like Gothic literature in a way to me. As far in the very very base, right, it's kind of like basically how like Bruce Wayne has to give up his humanity to save Gotham, and he becomes basically the creature in the bell tower.
Yeah.
That's such an old Gothic kind of I don't know, sort of universal monsters kind of a thing to me. That's like super tragic, and the sense of responsibility and duty, that all those things sort of really, I think, tickled things for me. And I was just like, I just love that concept.
Yeah.
So
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think going back to the monsters thing with this Batman, it's rare that we get to see Batman take on monsters like this, but he also uses sort of alternative weapons like bow and arrows and things like that. So talk us through the challenges in getting those particular combat scenes right.
Oh, yeah. The bow obviously is because it's Green Arrow or Oliver Queen, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of green in this movie. But yeah, that's tricky. Yeah, again, like just the sort of nerd fan stuff in mind. It's I kind of always want to do like something with like Batman with a sword, and I kind of wish that we could have used the sword in it more. But it had to be a bow and arrow.
Well, that part was still cool with the sword as
which,
well.
oh, awesome! It's really difficult to get right. I mean, some of the poses I wish they were stronger still, you know. And oh my gosh, there's this one scene where he's kneeling and he turns around, he gets up, turns around, and draws his bow. We had so many retakes on that, and I actually had to go in and take the best of it, and I had to reposition it and like reanimate parts of it.
Oh gosh.
Just to get it to look natural, and it still doesn't look amazing, but it looks not bad.
Well, I'm going to have to rewatch it and look out for that moment.
So a bow is a nightmare. You know what I mean? Because again, it's like there's a very specific position for it. Like the drawback needs to be like a strong pose, and so it's difficult to get these strong poses sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them I kind of wish they were stronger. You know, because there's the stuff that you see in the storyboard, or there's stuff that you kind of see in your head that what it looks like, and then when it comes back animated, you're kind of like, that's not the full drawn back motion. You know.
Yeah.
But things like that are difficult.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. How important was it for you to stay true to the source material but also put your own stamp on it? And how difficult was that to do?
Oh, it was a great question. I wish we had way more time.
No.
But maybe it's better because, again, it'll just sound like I'm complaining and I'm a whiner. So we try to stick as close to the source material as possible. But when we ran into problems, we obviously then that's when we had to change things, right? But as we were building it, it made me realize how, I don't know, just it's kind of like it's not a clean story, right? I kind of feel like it's not like an easy story, you know. It's not like, oh, he needs to do this and he's after this, and that's the conflict right there, right?
Yeah.
He finds this thing, right? And this thing is not even the thing to the answer, but it's the thing that's supposed to, you know, it's like the key to a gate,
yeah.
Right? And then you have to find the gate, and then you have to find you know what I mean?
There's a lot of things into it, isn't there?
Yeah, so there's a lot to it, and on top of that, like half the story is about flashbacks, right? Because the story of the past is, you know, arguably as important, right, or the important thing, right? And then that is very long and difficult also, right? And then trying to pair them up with all the characters who have their own. So, anyways, it was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
You know, and some of it actually sort of messed with pacing because you go into start a flashback, you come back out, and you're like, okay, where's Batman and what's he doing, right? And so he does this, and he takes a step towards that, and then goes into another flashback. And so by the third one, I was just like, I'm losing sense of like what Batman's doing, right? So we're gonna have to like cut out this middle flashback, and because again, it's just Anyways, it was a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, sounds it. Well, we all know this isn't your first DC animated film, so how was the making of this one different to any of the other ones that you've taken on?
I think it's very, very different, and I really wish that we had more time to work on things, right?
Yeah.
And again, I wish that it could be much longer, even though I'm sure it would make it even more dragged out, right? Because half of horror, I feel like, right, is tension and sound design, right? But because, okay, so this movie, I think, is like 88 minutes. Is that what they said? It was at least 15 minutes over, right? It was almost 100 minutes when we were at our sort of first cut. And even our first cut, we had already cut a lot.
Yeah. And
it was already faster than I wanted it to be. But, you know, again, because of, you know, the longer it is, it means the composer has to do more money. We have to pay the mix house more. We have to do all these kind of things. But they're like, you got to cut it to like 90 minutes. So it was very, very challenging because there's a lot of things that I wanted to do with it. I wanted to sort of draw out things. I wanted to challenge things to sort of play tension. But you need time, screen time for that. And that all kind of went out the window once we had to sort of crunch it down, you know. So it was super, super challenging. I think even visually, there was a lot of effects stuff that I kind of wanted to do. We got like quite a few of it in there.
Yeah. But
I really wanted to play with the visuals a lot more too. So I think this is like probably one of the most challenging things I've ever worked on. So.
Well, what's it like now getting to see all the reactions of all your hard work?
I don't know yet because it's more of a leak, and I know it's weird. I knew it was going to be weird going into it, because I think even in movie forms, right, like horror movies, I think is like a genre that not everybody loves, and I think cosmic horror is even a narrower margin. And so, but on top of that too, my interest in sort of like more sort of like Asian horror, which explains less. I think it's gonna. I knew that like I think certain people are gonna love it, but I think it might be again like a smaller type of audience. But I think like as a casual fan that's expecting like Adam West Batman and stuff like that, I knew that like some people are not gonna like it because they're not gonna get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's one of those things where it's an adaptation, so we kind of know roughly what to expect. So hopefully there's not too much of that going on. And I saw the film, I absolutely loved it, so I can't wait to watch it again. And I think my time is up. So Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. It was great to finally talk to you. And best of luck with the film.
Yeah. No, it's a pleasure. And yeah, I definitely think that it's one of those ones where you have to watch it multiple times to sort of kind of understand it. So
yeah, definitely.
But thank you so much. It was a pleasure finally talking to you.